On my grandmother's back porch stood a butter churn, and the thing she prized most out of it wasn't the butter. It was the sour, tangy milk left behind, the buttermilk. But the world kept telling her she had it backward. The creamery wanted her selling the cream and buying their sweet milk. The baking powder companies wanted her tin money, not her cow. The town doctors called a glass of soured milk something poor mountain folks drank for lack of anything better. But here is the turn. Nearly every last thing my granny did with that buttermilk, the food scientists have since proved she was right about. Number 16 is a way she soaked cornmeal overnight that unlocks goodness the corn otherwise keeps locked up tight. Number 20 is why her buttermilk sat easy on a belly that sweet milk turned sour. And number 1 she kept alive on the back of the stove like a living thing, because that is exactly what it was. So come count them down. 26 buttermilk secrets my grandmother never once wrote down. The science took 100 years to catch her. She knew first. Number 26, buttermilk and soda in place of the store tin. My grandmother almost never bought baking powder. She had a cow, she had buttermilk and a pinch of soda, and that was her leavening. The baking powder companies would rather have sold her a tin every week, but she had the chemistry without the words for it. The sour in buttermilk is lactic acid, and the moment it meets the soda, the two throw off a gas that lifts the batter. That is the whole of what a tin of powder does, only hers came free from the cow. So here is how you do it. For every cup of buttermilk, stir in a scant half teaspoon of soda and skip the powder. Number 25, the buttermilk biscuit. The reason my granny's biscuits came out tall and tender both at once was the buttermilk, and it did 2 jobs. Those recipe cards from town told her to use sweet milk. She knew better. First, the acid meets the soda and lifts the dough, but second, and this is the part folks miss, that same acid quietly softens the gluten, the tough strands that would otherwise bake up chewy. So you get a biscuit that rises high and still tears apart soft. So here is how you do it. Use buttermilk, never sweet milk, in your biscuits, with soda to match it. The tang is what makes them tender. Number 24, the sharper the jug, the better. When my grandmother's buttermilk went sharp and sour on the counter, she didn't pour it out. She reached for it first. The store would have you believe sour milk is spoiled milk, but there is a plain reason she saved it. The sourer the buttermilk, the more acid is in it, and the more acid, the harder it hits the soda, and the more it tenderizes the crumb. A sharp one lifts like a charm. So here is how you do it. Don't you dare pour out a jug of buttermilk gone tangy and strong. That sharp jug will bake you a lighter biscuit than a fresh one ever could. Number 23, buttermilk cornbread. My granny's cornbread never saw sweet milk. It was buttermilk every time, and there was more than habit in it. Cornmeal is a heavy, gritty thing, and it needs help to rise and to soften. The buttermilk's acid works the soda for the lift, and it tenderizes the crumb so the bread doesn't bake up dry and crumbly the way sweet milk cornbread will, and the tang cuts the plainness of the corn. So here is how you do it. Mix your cornmeal with buttermilk and a pinch of soda and pour it into a hot greased skillet. Sweet milk makes a duller, drier bread. The sour is the whole secret. Number 22, soak the chicken in buttermilk before you fry it. My grandmother never dropped a piece of chicken in the grease that hadn't sat in buttermilk first. The tidy cooks thought it a waste of good milk. But that soak does real work. The mild acid loosens the surface of the meat, so it fries up tender instead of tight, and the thick, sour milk clings to the chicken so the flour has something to grab, and you get a coating that stays on instead of sliding off in the pan. So here is how you do it. Soak your chicken pieces in buttermilk a few hours, or overnight in the cold, then dredge them straight from the jug into your flour. Number 21. Clabber, the yogurt before anybody named it. Before the store sold anything in a little cup, my granny let a crock of raw milk sit and sour on its own until it set up thick like a soft custard. Clabber, she called it, and she ate it with a spoon. City folks recoiled at soured milk eaten on purpose, but she was making yogurt without the word. The good bacteria already living in the milk eat the sugar and turn it to acid, and that acid sets the milk thick and safe. So here is how you do it. Let clean raw milk sit somewhere warm till it clabbers thick, and eat it fresh. The scientists call those bugs a probiotic now. She just called it supper. Number 20. Easier on the belly than sweet milk. My grandmother could drink a glass of buttermilk that would have doubled her over if it were sweet milk. The doctors of the day had no answer for it. But there is a clean reason. The milk sugar, the lactose, is the very thing that turns so many stomachs, and the bacteria that sour the buttermilk have already eaten much of it up before it ever reaches you. So here is how you do it. If sweet milk sits heavy on you, try a glass of real cultured buttermilk instead. The bugs did your stomach's hard work for it, long before the scientists ever explained the trick. Number 19. Buttermilk keeps when sweet milk turns. In a cellar with no ice, my granny's sweet milk went off in a day or two, but her buttermilk held good far longer. The store called soured milk already spoiled. They had it backward. All that lactic acid the bacteria made drops the buttermilk so sour that the bugs which rot milk and make you sick simply cannot live in it. The acid preserves it. So here is how you do it. Count on your buttermilk to outlast your sweet milk by days in a cool place. It is soured on purpose, and that very souring is what guards it. Number 18. Soak the liver in buttermilk. When my grandmother cooked liver, she never took it straight to the pan. She laid it in a bowl of buttermilk for an hour or two first. Folks who cooked it plain and gagged on it never understood why hers tasted mild. But there is sense in it. The buttermilk draws the blood and the bitter, metal tang up out of the liver and leaves it sweet and clean, and the acid gentles the tough texture besides. So here is how you do it. Soak your liver and any strong organ meat in buttermilk for an hour or two before you cook it. Pour that milk off and cook it fresh. Number 17. Buttermilk in the chocolate cake. My grandmother put buttermilk in her chocolate cake, and it made a moister, deeper cake than sweet milk ever could. The fancy bakers didn't credit a poor woman's cow for it. The acid works the soda for a fine, tender rise, and it softens the crumb so the cake stays moist for days. And here is the part they only worked out lately. That same tang lifts the cocoa and makes the chocolate taste more of chocolate. So here is how you do it. Use buttermilk in your chocolate cake with soda to match it. You will get a darker, moister cake. Number 16. Soak the cornmeal overnight. This is one the science took the longest to catch. Before my granny made her cornmeal mush, or her bread, she often soaked the meal in buttermilk overnight. The hurried cook skipped it as foolishness, but that soak works a quiet magic. Corn locks up much of its own iron and minerals in a form your body cannot reach, and when the buttermilk's acid works on the meal overnight, It breaks that lock and frees the goodness so your body can finally take it up. So here is how you do it. Stir your cornmeal into buttermilk and let it sit overnight before you cook it. The scientists have a long name for what she was doing. Number 15. Soak the muddy fish in buttermilk. When my grandmother fried up catfish, or any fish out of a warm pond, she soaked it in buttermilk first, and the muddy taste that ruins pond fish was simply gone. The folks who fried it straight and complained never learned her fix. But there is a reason. That muddy flavor comes from a certain compound in the fish, and the buttermilk binds it up and draws it out, and the acid freshens the flesh besides. So here is how you do it. Soak your catfish or any muddy-tasting fish in buttermilk for an hour before you fry it. It pulls the pond right out of them and leaves nothing but clean, sweet fish. Number 14. Buttermilk pancakes and waffles. Come Sunday, my granny's pancakes were always buttermilk, and they came off the griddle tall and light, where a sweet milk batter lies there flat. It is the same working as her biscuits. The acid meets the soda and throws off the gas that puffs the batter the second it hits the heat, and it tenderizes the crumb so the cakes are fluffy instead of rubbery. So here is how you do it. Make your pancake and waffle batter with buttermilk and a good pinch of soda, and cook it right away before the rise gets away. Fresh off the griddle, they will be twice as high as the boxed kind. Number 13, buttermilk marinade for a tough or gamey cut. When a cut of meat was tough, or when the men brought in venison with that strong wild taste, my grandmother laid it in buttermilk overnight. The neighbors just cooked their tough meat tough. But she had the answer. The mild acid in the buttermilk works at the surface of the meat and loosens it toward tender, and it mutes the gamey tang that turns folks off wild meat. So here is how you do it. Soak a tough cut, or any gamey venison, in buttermilk in the cold overnight. Pour it off, and cook it the next day. It comes out milder and more tender than it went in. Number 12. Buttermilk pie, when the pantry was near bare. When there was no fruit to be had, my granny could still set a pie on the table with little more than buttermilk, eggs, sugar, and a spoon of flour. The uptown folks called it a poverty pie. But it is a fine thing, and the buttermilk is why. The acid balances all that sugar, so the pie tastes rich instead of sickly sweet, and it helps the custard set up silky instead of curdled. So here is how you do it. Beat buttermilk with eggs, sugar, butter, and a little flour. Pour it in a crust, and bake it slow. Number 11. Clabber cheese from the soured milk. When a crock of milk clabbered thick, and my grandmother wanted more than a spoonful, she warmed it gently, and it broke into soft curds and thin whey, and she strained the curds through a cloth into a fresh, mild cheese. The acid the bacteria made pulls the milk's protein together into curd and lets the watery whey fall away. So here is how you do it. Warm your clabbered or soured milk gently, let it break into curds, and strain it through a cloth. Salt it, and you have a soft farmer cheese by supper, from milk most folks would have poured out. Number 10. Save the whey, always. When my granny made her cheese or churned her butter, the thin liquid left behind, the whey, never went down the drain. She baked with it and she fed it out. The wasteful cook poured it off as nothing, but there is real good in that pale water. Much of the milk's protein and its minerals wash into the whey, and it makes bread rise finer and feeds a hog or a hen better than plain water ever would. So here is how you do it. Keep your whey, use it in place of water in your bread dough, or pour it into the animal's trough. Number 9. Buttermilk in the mashed potatoes. My grandmother mashed her potatoes with a good splash of buttermilk, and they came out lighter and brighter than any drowned in cream. The rich folks used heavy cream and thought hers a poor substitute, but hers was the better plate. The buttermilk whips in lighter than cream, so the potatoes stay fluffy instead of turning to paste, and the little tang cuts the heaviness and wakes the whole dish up. So here is how you do it. Mash your potatoes with warm buttermilk and butter instead of cream. They will be lighter on the fork and brighter on the tongue. Number 8. Soak the salt ham down in buttermilk. When a country ham came out of the cure too salty to eat, my granny soaked the slices in buttermilk before she fried them, and the fierce salt came down to something a body could enjoy. The old men who cured too heavy never knew the fix, but it works plain as day. The salt in the meat pulls toward the milk around it, drawing out of the ham and into the buttermilk. So here is how you do it. Soak your too salty ham or bacon in buttermilk for a few hours, then pour it off and cook it fresh. Number 7. Buttermilk on a sunburn and a rough cheek. My grandmother kept buttermilk for more than the kitchen. On a sunburned neck or a chapped rough face, she'd pat a little buttermilk and let it sit before she rinsed it. The vain town ladies bought their creams in jars, but there was quiet sense in her jug. The lactic acid in buttermilk cools and softens the skin and lifts away the dry, dead top layer, which is the very same acid the fancy face creams sell you now under a fine name. So here is how you do it. Pat a little buttermilk on a sunburn or a rough patch, let it sit a few minutes, and rinse it cool. Number 6. Feed the rest to the hens and the hogs. Whatever buttermilk my granny couldn't use, not one drop was wasted. It went to the animals. The extra buttermilk and the whey went straight into the trough. Folks who kept no stock saw only waste milk. But she was feeding good into good. That soured milk carries protein and calcium and the same friendly bugs, and it fattens a hog and helps a hen lay better than plain scraps. So here is how you do it. Pour your leftover buttermilk and whey into the pig's slop or the chicken's feed. Nothing off that cow was ever thrown away. Number 5. Keep a starter and never buy again. Here is the trick that kept my grandmother in buttermilk the year around. She never let the crock go fully empty. She saved back a cupful of the good sour buttermilk and stirred it into a fresh jar of milk, and in a day that whole jar had soured into buttermilk too. The dairy wanted her buying a fresh bottle every week. She never had to. The living bugs in that saved cup breed right through the new milk and sour it just the same. So here is how you do it. Save a cup of cultured buttermilk, stir it into fresh milk, and leave it warm a day. It makes its own next batch. Number 4. Out of buttermilk, sour your own with a spoon of vinegar. When my granny's jug ran dry and a recipe called for buttermilk, she made a quick stand-in with sweet milk and a spoon of vinegar. But her fix works on the same principle. The acid in the vinegar clabbers the milk in minutes, thickening it and souring it just enough to work the soda the same as the real thing. So here is how you do it. Stir 1 spoon of vinegar or lemon juice into a cup of sweet milk. Let it sit 10 minutes till it thickens, and use it in your baking. It won't carry the live bugs, but for a biscuit in a pinch it does the job. Number 3. Read it by the taste and the nose. My grandmother never needed a date on a jar to know her buttermilk. She knew by a smell and a taste whether it was mild and young, or sharp and ready, or finally gone too far. She'd catch the ripeness on the air and know exactly what it was good for that day. No gauge, no calendar, just a nose and a tongue trained by 50 years of churning. So here is how you do it. Learn the smell and the taste of your buttermilk at every stage, so you know when it's right for the pan and when it's best in a glass. The tongue knows things no printed date can tell you. Number 2, keep it cool and it lives for days. My grandmother's buttermilk kept for the better part of a week because she kept the crock down in the coolest corner of the cellar or the spring house, never in the heat. Folks who left it out in a warm kitchen and watched it turn thought soured milk just didn't keep. But cold is the whole trick. The chill slows the living bugs down, so they sour it gentle and slow instead of racing it past good in a day. So here is how you do it. Keep your buttermilk covered in the coldest spot you have. It is alive, and like anything alive, it does best kept cool and calm. Number 1, the culture never dies if you feed it. And here is number 1, the one my grandmother would have been surprised to hear called a trick, because to her it was just a thing she kept alive. That sour in the buttermilk is a living culture, and hers had been kept going a very long time. Her mother handed her a cup of it, and her mother before that, the same living sour carried down and fed and used and fed again, hand to hand, for longer than anybody could rightly count. She never bought a culture. She inherited one. So here is the truth under all of it. Feed that culture, and it never dies. Forget it. Let the last crock spoil or dry up, and a thing that took 100 years to grow is gone in a week, and you cannot buy it back. That is the whole secret sitting under every other one on this list. Now here is the truth that sits under all 26 of these. My grandmother could hand you every rule I've just laid out, and gladly. But she could never hand you the tongue that knew when the jug was ready, or the hand that felt the clabber set, or the culture her own mother pressed into her hands as a girl. Those took a lifetime at the churn to grow, and when we lost her, most of that went with her. The last of her starter dried up in the crock a winter or two after. That is why I am setting these down for you. So here is my one request. Pick a single one, only one, and go and do it this week. Soak a chicken in buttermilk. Save back a cup and grow your own. Then come down to the comments and tell me the one thing your own grandmother or grandfather did with milk, or in that kitchen, that they never wrote down anywhere, the thing you only carry because you stood there and watched them. Tell me whose they were, and what county they churned in. Gather it up before it goes in the ground for good, because that is the whole point of this. It lived in one pair of hands at a time, and it is slipping away one crock at a time. If this stirred something in you, subscribe and stay a while. There is more of it here, and not a lot of time left to save it.